Hey there everyone, this is Samuel Johnson and welcome back to the Alien Force Retrospectives. And today we're going to be looking at episode 37 of Ben 10 Alien Force Trade-Off. And in this episode we see the return of Darkstar. Pretty much, because he's back on Earth because of what happened in War of the Worlds. And so, in this episode, in the beginning of this episode, Kevin managed to track him down to a warehouse where Darkstar seems to be reading from this old tome. Kevin was able to track him because apparently he left a trail of breadcrumbs behind. But it turns out that Darkstar wanted this. He left the trail on purpose because he was trying to get Kevin's attention. And he says that apparently he says he has something that could actually fix them both. And while Kevin doesn't trust Darkstar, he does listen to him. And so Darkstar explains what it is. He's apparently been he's been doing some research and using his vast wealth because Darkstar. I'm guessing Darkstar is still rich. He was able to find the location of this ancient artifact called the Dominus Librium. He states it might have been an old ancient alien artifact because apparently in the show everything's alien, but whatever. I still like to think it's mystical. But pretty much regardless of whether it was mystical or alien, apparently it's an artifact it's an artifact that imbued whoever wielded it with power and to absorb energy, and he says that whatever it is, it could be the key to fixing his face as well as reverse Kevin's condition. And while Kevin of course is hesitant because this is Darkstar, and so he says, "Why should I trust you? You might turn my back. Why should I even trust you?" And Darkstar says that while he would probably like to do this by himself, Kevin's abilities he can't do it alone. He needs Kevin's abilities would actually make him more fruitful for this mission, and it's essentially just a trade-off. Kevin helps him get the Dominus Librium, and he shares the cure with him. And so while Kevin doesn't like Darkstar, he says, okay, he actually does agree with it. As such, he leaves Gwen and Ben high and dry while they're in the middle of trying to track down some Forever Knights, and so Kevin and Darkstar manage to fly off because the artifact is supposed to be on an island in the South Atlantic that was recently come to the surface, and so they go onto the island, but when they find the temple where the Dominus Librium is, but it's booby trapped, and all the stone statues surrounding the temple come to life and attack them. They manage to evade them because the things are so big they can't get inside the temple, and inside they see the Dominus Librium. Unfortunately, Darkstar's powers have no effect on where it's on the pedestal that he's being held on, so Kevin has to go up and get it himself, and he manages to get it, but pretty much with Indiana Jones logic, it turns out that that was also booby trapped, and the Dominus Librium was the thing that was keeping the entire island afloat. So Kevin and Darkstar are able to run out as the island begins sinking. They manage to get to their ship and fly back to the mainland, and of course, deal's a deal. And so Darkstar explains that the Dominus Librium, with how it's designed, is all about balance. What it'll do is that it'll drain all the excess power from Kevin, and transfer that power over to Darkstar, thus restoring his appearance and essentially nullifying both of their powers. As such, both Kevin and Darkstar grab an end of the Dominus Librium because it's kind of like a U shape, or as Kevin puts it, it's a fancy wishbone. So it's like a gold U with a weird face or whatever. And so that's exactly what it does. It absorbs all the excess energy from Kevin, and it just starts flowing into Darkstar, and eventually it causes a massive explosion. While during the process, Kevin was angry because he felt the pain, so he thought it was a trap. But it turns out, Darkstar was true to his word. Kevin is now back to normal, and as Darkstar said, he's now lost his powers. He can't absorb anything, and of course the same goes to the Darkstar, who's now restored back to normal and now just looks like Michael Morningstar. He's able to take off his helmet. He's a pretty boy again, and pretty much he says, "Well, okay, then deal's a deal. Thanks for helping me." And after he and Kevin shake hands, he socks him in the face, which I kind of like. And so Michael takes the Dominus Librium and leaves. And so Kevin goes to meet with Ben and Gwen, and of course he has a black eye, and he says, "Oh, I just walked into a door or something." And pretty much they're actually surprised to find them human again, but and a human again. And Kevin, of course, and when they ask him what it is, and Kevin just, oh, I just wished on a star, and now I'm human again. Ben buys it enough, but you can tell Gwen's a little suspicious. But otherwise, they're happy that Kevin's normal again, and he also does inform them that he's lost his powers. So to kind of keep him up on it. So anyway, they inform him about all the stuff with the Forever Knights, and so they manage to find the warehouse where. So Kevin drives into the warehouse where the Forever Knights are holding all their stuff. And Gwen at first doesn't want Kevin to join in because he's the only one of the between him, Ben, and Gwen, Kevin's the only one without powers now, which I'm gonna call bullcrap on, because in the classic series originally Ben was the only one with powers, and yet Gwen and Max still went in, and even then Max was still technically at a disadvantage when Gwen got the spell book. Or was it Gwen with a disadvantage? Well, either way, at one point or another in the classic series, at least one member of the trio of the original cast did not have powers. So yeah, they still ran into danger. So I don't know. I'm still gonna call bullcrap on that, but I think it's probably because that she just doesn't want Kevin getting hurt, because, well, it's Kevin and she likes him. So they managed to go in and fight, and manage to get a fight for Forever Knights, but Kevin, being Kevin, he just outright ignores the warning and goes in to help them anyway. And yeah, Kevin, he's just like in the classic series with Max and Gwen before she found the spellbook. He's still useful, as he still has all of his knowledge. He still has all his technical knowledge. He's still a capable fighter. And what's actually kind of funny is that Ben winds up going big chill, freezing the Forever Knights. And when one of them tries to make a getaway in the car, in a truck, it won't start because Kevin took out the distributor cap. It's nice. It's nice for that. And even Ben says without the powers, he's still a valuable member of the team. However, Gwen, of course, is still suspicious, and so when Kevin drops Ben and Gwen off, Gwen manages to hold Kevin's hand, and she senses Michael's mana on him, and so she tells Ben and Kevin that she has an errand to run, and she manages to track down Michael Morningstar back to the warehouse that Kevin found him at, and he's just kind of admiring himself in the mirror. And yeah, it turns out he was expecting her too, because he knew that Kevin would slip up because he thinks Kevin's an idiot. And so she wants to know what the heck happened. And so he reveals the truth. And so he reveals the Dominus Librium, which he's now had affixed onto his chest. And it turns out that there was a detail that Michael neglected to mention. While the Dominus Librium did in fact nullify both Kevin's powers and his own, it turns out it can still absorb things, and whoever wields it is the recipient for those power for that power. And while Michael may not have his regular energy absorbing powers anymore, the Dominus Librium can now do all that energy for him, and it can still do a ton, and it can still absorb a lot. So despite the fact that he's now normal again, it's still Michael. And as I said back in the All That Glitters vlog, he's still a greedy rich boy. And despite the fact that he's got what he wanted now, he just wants more. He still wants Gwen's power. So with the Dominus Librium, he and Gwen get into a fight. But whatever Gwen throws at him, he's able to absorb. In the meantime, Ben and Kevin are wondering where Gwen is because they haven't been able to contact her. And Kevin is able to put two and two together quickly that Gwen found out, and he does tell Ben about what he did. And while Ben is mad at him, they realize they still need to find Gwen. So at first Ben's going to go alien and so they can find her. But Kevin says, "I think I know where she is." So they go to the warehouse, and yeah, at this point Gwen is she's not doing well. Everything she throws at Michael, he manages to absorb anything that he can, and he manages to get the drop on her and just starts absorbing all of her energy. So Ben goes alien to try and fight him, but unfortunately, he's with his power running, he's able to even overcome Ben as he traps him and starts absorbing all his power, pretty much just slowly turning Ben and Gwen into husks. And so Kevin's realizing that he needs to do something, that he needs to fight back, and when he runs to confront Michael, at this point Michael's able to make gold constructs like Gwen has, and he even says, no, if you interrupt the process, this is delicate, if you interrupt the process, the consequences could be bad. But Kevin says, pretty much says, screw that, he's trying to help Gwen. So he jumps in the middle of his energy absorption ray, grabs the Dominus Librium, and manages to break it, causing an explosion. Ben and Gwen are ultimately restored back to normal, but unfortunately, with the Dominus Librium's destruction, it reversed everything it did. So Kevin is now back to his amalgam form, while Michael is now a husk again. And of course, still swears revenge on all of them and grabs his helmet and runs off, while Kevin says that while he may not like this look, it was probably worth it just to help Gwen. So yeah, the episode pretty much ends with with Kevin and Gwen helping Ben up, and Kevin saying that they'll go to Mr. Smoothie's, and they're on him that night. So overall, a rather nice episode. As I mentioned before with Haley and the In Charm's Way vlog, pretty much the strength of the episode, pretty much the strength when it comes to season 3 of Alien Force is kind of in the Gwen and Kevin relationship. With Kevin worrying about because of what happened to Kevin, there is kind of the need to try and fix him with Gwen, and him and Gwen kind of see, and this kind of does help show kind of how what he and Gwen are willing to do for each other and how. And this episode kind of exemplifies, and this episode is nice. Like, even and on top, just seeing Kevin willing to go through hell to try and fix his appearance, and even Gwen's reaction when she learns how he did it. Like, she senses Michael's mana on him, and she knows this is not something that he should have done. But of course, because she's willing, and of course that also kind of leads to how everything unfolds. Gwen wants to confront Michael because she thinks he might have hurt Kevin, and Kevin likewise is willing to go back to being a monster if it means Gwen is back. It means Gwen is saved, and of course that's not. And I like that. And on top of that, I do like seeing Kevin and Gwen. I like seeing that, despite how I even still like seeing other parts of Kevin. And while it is brief, like very brief, it is still nice seeing Kevin kind of doing his what else he's good at. Like the instant, like when he doesn't have his powers and they're confronting the Forever Knights, he's still savvy. He's still a good fighter. He knows what the Forever Knights will most likely do, and thus takes off the distributor cap. And I like that. And on top of that, it's also another Darkstar episode. And yeah, as I mentioned, Darkstar is actually a pretty good villain. Like, it's kind of a change from All That Glitters. In All That Glitters, he was obviously brilliant and was still kind of the spoiled rich kid. But I think with every appearance I've seen him in, I kind of appreciate him just more and more. I already mentioned how I like him as Darkstar more, but even when he's now reverted back to normal, he still kind of has that vain arrogance to him. But But here you can kind of see the kind of more conniving aspect. Like, he is willing to put his hatred and anger of Kevin aside for the artifact. And he's a man of his word, but he knows that at the same time he knows that his interaction with Kevin would get Gwen on his trail. He's still, like, even with the fact that he has his appearance back, just like in All That Glitters, he's greedy. He wants power for its own sake. And yeah, that's why he still keeps the Dominus Librium, so he can continue absorbing powers on a grand scale without just all at once. And yeah, I still kind of like that. Even when Gwen confronts him, he's like, lovely Gwen, I knew you'd be around here somewhere. Again, it's just kind of nice seeing, like, this raw, angry teenager being so sophisticated, just kind of being this sophisticated monster who just really wants power because he wants power. He's just that greedy. And yeah, again, it's just kind of he's just kind of grown on me. Not just the design, but it's just kind of how much more he's willing to do for it. And even now that he's got what he's wanted, he's still being greedy. And I kind of like it too, because he's still because even when he's back to normal, he still has the intensity that he had when he was Darkstar. So it still makes it nice to watch and still nice to do that. And again, it's still kind of the stuff, and I still kind of like seeing, like, the first half was just, I like seeing Kevin and Darkstar kind of have to work alongside each other. It was a nice little adventure flick when they went on the island and they were suddenly attacked by the statues as they tried to get in. It was kind of like a little mini Indiana Jones movie. Even when Kevin took off the Dominus Librium and the entire island crumbled, I liked that. I did like seeing that. And on top of that, I don't know what else to say about that. And yet, again, there's really not much to Ben in this episode, though. Like, a little bit, like, he's just kind of superfluous. Like I said, this episode's just kind of Kevin and Gwen episode, and Ben's he's just there. Like, the overall, that's kind of something I realized. He doesn't contribute. Like, the closer we get to him contributing is the Forever Knight stuff, but that's a B plot at best. the real action is with Michael and Kevin, and Ben really doesn't have a say in any of that. Even when everything's said and done, he's just another victim. He was just there. He contributed nothing. Otherwise, it was just a simple Gwen and Kevin episode, and I kind of like seeing. And again, I like kind of seeing that. And while Gwen, and you can tell that while Gwen does want to be happy for Kevin and what happened to him, at the same time she is suspicious because it's obvious he's hiding something. And I do enjoy that. Again, it's just kind of shows what they're willing to go through for the other. Kevin did go through all this to get his appearance back, but if he had a choice between looking normal again and having Gwen safe, he would still go for Gwen. And likewise, if Gwen thinks that Kevin is in danger or he's in a position where he would get hurt, she will risk her life for him too. Which is why she confronted Michael when she did. Which is why she went to go confront Michael. Well, and while Michael even admits that it's that worry that drew her, that was able to lure her to him. At the end of the day, it shows what they're willing to go through. It shows what they're willing to go through, and it's still with a nice villain who, thankfully, even with season 3, is still nice and entertaining to watch. Unfortunately, I think this is actually his last appearance in Alien Force. I think the next time we see him is in a finale in a 2-part finale in Ultimate Alien, not the series finale, but they're kind of ongoing, but kind of what they did with the first story. I'll talk about that later. But either way, that's the next time we see him. I may be wrong. I think he may have appeared in a later episode on Alien Force, but I don't think so. Otherwise, yeah, it's a good episode. It's not great, but it is good. I like seeing Darkstar again. I like seeing the first half where he and Kevin have to work alongside each other. I like seeing Gwen and Kevin interact. I like seeing Gwen and Kevin, and I kind of like seeing the suspicion. It's just a nice episode it's just a nice episode. Yeah. That's really all I have to say, so, yeah. Thank you for watching. I'm Samuel Johnson, and I'll see you next week. Take care.